Today we will be exploring Spring Creek Farm.
Great tasting food, the farm experience for the community and their families, and restoring the land and the climate. Those are our goals.
Brent, regenerative agriculture is quite the buzzword right now, but this behind us is conventional farming. Tell us about it.
Well, in conventional farming, the field looks like this a good bit of the time because they use herbicides to knock out all the weeds before they plant the crop, beans or corn. Now, yes, when the beans and corn come up, that field will look nice and green, but most of the year it looks like this.
Your field looks totally different now.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is beautiful.
This is what a regenerative farm cover crop looks like this time of year. So we planted last fall 3 different parts of rye, which kept the field green during the winter, kept the erosion from happening in the field. And then we planted crimson clover, which you see in front of you, which puts nitrogen into the soil. That's our fertilizer. You also see the bees making honey from the pollen. And then lastly, you see the barley's taken over, and that crop will now serve as forage for the cattle.
Okay, so why are the cattle going to eat this?
So we're going to move the cattle through here in the next couple weeks, and this is great finishing forage for them. So they'll get not only the seed head, but the green and some of the clover. So it's a perfect feed mix for the cattle.
I have never been this close to cows. There's a baby calf over there. It's really cute. I was hoping we'd be here on the farm when one of them gave birth. There's still time for that. But tell us about how...
It might happen. It's
yeah.
pretty close.
Okay. So tell us about how, there is a baby there, how you're doing, you know, raising these cows different.
Yeah, welcome. We raise grass-fed beef like others do. And one of the great things about doing things naturally is everything supports each other. So, for instance, about 2/3 of the world is covered with grasslands.
Okay.
And grasslands like this are maintained by herds of animals. And the way they do that is they move in a herd, like these cows do, and they chop off the top half of the grass. They rough it up a little with their hooves because they're big animals.
Right.
And then they put down manure. So what you've just heard, and then they don't come back for about 3 weeks or a month or even longer. So what you've just heard described is about $1 million grass machine. That is the way to grow grass. You want to take off the top, not too far. You've heard that, right?
Right.
You want to rough it up a little bit like an aerator. Then you want to put down your manure, and then you want to leave it alone for 3 months. That's what these guys do.
And there's no pesticide on the ground, no fertilizer, none of that.
We're organically certified, so that was the first step. So we don't use any inputs or chemicals. The next thing you're starting to hear about is regenerative agriculture, which we're also practicing.
Okay.
Which is as part of climate change. What you want to do is get as much carbon out of the air as you can. Well, if you're plowing up the soil or you have bare ground, you're not doing that.
Okay.
So when you have grass growing like this and fed with the cows, you're pulling out the maximum amount of carbon. And you're starting to hear more about this as a climate change solution.
I'm standing with Ethan, who's the livestock manager here on the farm. And Ethan, you were telling me a story about how you moved these last week. Let's retell that story of how you moved and why you moved them.
So they were in the field right next to us, and they had been there for a little bit of time and eaten the grass down, and they start to make a little bit of noise when they're ready to be moved. And so I know, okay, let's move them tomorrow. And I set this field up, I would get the fence all ready, and then I just open the fence up and I start calling for them, and they kind of slowly start walking up the field. They don't
teach me how to call these cows.
So I call them, my grandparents actually had a cattle farm, and I have adopted their call.
Okay.
And I just sort of turn to them and I go, come on!
Hold the camera, you're the director. You hold the camera.
Come on! And you see they all start coming.
Look at that.
Yeah. And if I were standing here with
I've had the opportunity to spend some time with you learning about the different vegetables that you're growing. But tell us why. Why are you so passionate about this?
Well, you know, it's kind of a long story as most people's careers go. But, you know, I spent many years working in a small cooperative health food store and just learning about the different ways that, you know, food and our environment impacts our health. And at a certain point, I wanted to do more, you know, so I started volunteering on different urban agriculture projects in Philadelphia and just really got the bug.
So what's really, really nice about this, there's no pesticides.
Right.
So the onions that you're growing are going to be way healthier. Okay.
Absolutely.
So you just cover it with this netting. Now, there's a lot of onions that are going to be grown here. Do you have an idea how many people this will feed?
We planted close to 10,000 onions into these beds.
10,000. I'm standing in front of this incredibly large greenhouse where they'll be able to start growing vegetables in January. Now, this greenhouse has something so unique. We've never seen it before.
This is the heart of the water system or the heating system for this greenhouse. We did a piece and we talked about how the water comes in and goes out. Now, there is a, what do you call that?
Compressor outside.
A compressor outside that is really kind of like a heat pump, right?
Pulling heat out of the air,
Okay,
putting it into this tank.
okay.
That's the holding tank. And then from there it goes out through these radiant tubes throughout the floor of the greenhouse.
What's the temperature going to be of this water that's coming out?
It won't get higher than about 120, but it'll stay close to that.
So about 120 degrees.
A little bit lower maybe.
Now, we've actually been here today and we have named this incredible piece. Go ahead, Hannah. What did you name it?
R2D2.
R2D2.
It's the heart of the greenhouse.
It really is the heart of the greenhouse. And
Hannah, what is it that really excites you about having this greenhouse?
I'd say the most exciting aspect is just the function of it. You know, it allows us to start our season much earlier than nature would provide. We can get a lot of heat from the sun and kind of trap it inside the structure in the early months of February.
One of the most important parts of being on a farm is water. And this big trench was built for the tanks that will collect the water from the top of the greenhouse. This is a large farm. How do you handle all this work?
I am very fortunate. I have a great crew, 4 interns this year, 3 interns and 1 assistant manager. And they're all very passionate young people who are interested in learning about regenerative farming practices. And so they live on site with us here, and we all work together every day.
you live and work on an organic farm, you recycle everything. And sometimes you may not need to use what you recycle right away. So behind me, use your imagination. So here we are on an organic farm, and I gotta tell you, so far our day has been just incredible.
It absolutely has. So some people might be wondering why this big dog is in this chicken coop. And he is actually here. There's 2 of them, and they are here to protect the chickens from the fox and the coyotes. And I think they're doing a good job because there are a lot of chickens, and the other one just came to join us.
We
Hi.
have 2 big dogs here.
Hi. I thought you were the not friendly one.
So, being a sustainable farm, what they do is they actually rotate where the chickens are throughout time. So right now, this chicken patch is right here, or the chicken pen, and the dogs are just loving having some company out here. But last year, this exact piece, and you can see it over there, was over on that side. So they just keep rotating it around so the ground and everything is wonderful. Grass-fed, organic chicken eggs. They're $8 a dozen, and they kind of do it on the honor system here. There's a refrigerator out front. There's always 10 dozen eggs out there, and you just put the money in and go.
But I'm
now,
looking to see if there are any eggs in here. Oh, look. Hi, there's a chicken in there laying an egg, but look, I found an egg.
let's start out by how many bees are here?
So we've got about 7 hives behind me. So that would equate to about 100,000 bees.
About 100,000 bees.
About 10,000 a hive, give or take. Yeah, you're looking at quite a few bees.
Now, each hive, as you told me, has its own queen. Why is that? Why can't one queen just do the whole thing?
Because only 1 queen per hive. There can only be 1 main lady per hive. So she lays all the eggs for each one of the hives.
Tell me about what these bees do for Spring Creek Farm and the organic circle that we have going on here.
Yeah, so it's incredibly important to have bees on the farm to help with all the pollination. So all the fruits, the vegetables that we grow here, including all the clover and everything in the fields that the cows eat, are all pollinated by bees and other pollinators, but bees are a very large, important pollinator.
When I come back here next year, how many hives are we going to have here?
That is a great question. I'm hoping we continue to grow. We could have an exponential number of hives here as long as the food allows for it. So luckily we are on an enormous farm here where the bees do have enough food to sustain them.
Now, the big question. Winnie the Pooh is in my ear and he's talking to me. He said, how much honey?
Yeah, well, again, I'm pretty new to this, so hopefully if I manage them correctly, you should be able to get about 40 pounds of honey per hive.
Yeah, we're down in the spring house, built in the early 1800s.
In the early 1800s.
Probably the first thing they built before they built the house.
Right.
They had to know where the water was coming from.
So there's actually a spring that's bubbling up into here. And, you know, as you can see, we're on a pedestal in the middle. And then there's water on this side, Brent's home, there's water on that side over there. And this water actually feeds out to the stream out there.
Yeah, the overflow right in the corner flows all the time in the driest summer months. It's a fully flowing spring.
Fully flowing spring.
Pure
So now
water.
where does the water come up and come in here?
It just bubbles out of the bottom. This is limestone area, Pennsylvania. So there's gravel in the bottom. It's just continually filling in. And it's probably how they originally located the house, is they found the spring.
Right.
And then they said, this is a good place to build a house. So for 200 years, this has been supplying all the water of the house. You see two pumps, one for the house, one
Right.
for the farm.
Right.
And all the water for the irrigation and the animals on 125 acres.
So now even though you're pumping out of here for the house and pumping out of here for the farm,
Irrigation.
for irrigation of the farm, it still continues to be up this high.
We've never been able to draw it down, even in the driest August.
Now, does it ever like overtake you? I guess not, because the outtake goes right into the stream outside.
There are times with heavy rain where the outtake is a little bit slow. and
Okay.
it'll come up above this area we're on.
Now, I'm going to say it's about 30 degrees cooler in here than it is where Patti and Cindy are, right on the other side of the room. In the middle of the summer, do you ever come out and just hang out when it's just too hot?
I have come out and found a chair parked in here.
I'm standing about 20 feet from the spring house. And this is where the overflow of the spring house actually comes out and comes right in to the creek. So Roberto, you've worked on this property since you were 17 years old.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's a long, long time for this property. Now this property was a horse farm a long time ago, right?
Oh, horse farm, yeah.
And then in the last 4 years, it's turned over to this organic farm.
Yes.
Is that more work for you?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But is it okay? Is it good working here?
Well, it's different kind of job, but I like it.
You know, this view is worth $1 million. I mean, this beautiful pond with the opening and the creek out here, and we're standing in a pavilion. You know, tell me about this space.
Well, this pavilion was used for storage for horse jumps when it was a horse farm, and it's right next to the outdoor arena. We'll walk across there. Now we're using it because of the view, and people can enjoy the farm for event space.
Wow.
So I could see a party, a wedding even out here. This place, driving up, walking around, absolutely magnificent. It's just such a cool
It's really-
place to be.
Let's go out over here to this space because, you know, as we talked about it earlier today, I really believe that you could put a tent to hold maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people out here.
We've got the space, Dan. We've got the space.
We've got the space, but what I like about this space is having the RV right here. I
Right
think
up
would
in the
be
middle of this space.
awesome.
Well, there's an idea we haven't tried yet.
So Brent, we're on the roof of your equipment shed, and this has to be one of the largest solar arrays I've ever seen.
That solar system, Dan, is 112 kW.
112 kW.
An average house is about 5 kW.
About 5, and my RV over there, Explorer 1, is
you
about
might have
1
about
kW.
a 10, something like that.
Yeah.
1. So we power everything on the farm with this solar. It produces enough energy each year to power everything from the house and the cooling and the heating in the house.
Wow.
To the barns, the electric gators that are running around on the farm, the irrigation pumps, the greenhouse, and even my 2 electric vehicles.
That is just incredible.
It's a good feeling to know you're generating that kind of power to power everything here, right here on the farm.
What would it like to be on a farm unless you get to drive a John Deere? And that's exactly what Patty's doing right now. He's driving us through in a John Deere. Doing a good job.
Brent, I want to thank you for these last few days on the farm. Has been amazing.
Yeah, did you enjoy the fresh vegetables, fresh eggs? Did you like those?
The eggs, the fresh eggs every morning were my favorite.
And I hope you got a sense of how it all fits together. The peas, the vegetables, the animals,
Yes.
chickens.
It
all
almost
serves
feels
each other.
like the circle of life. It just feels like one big circle.
And it is the circle of life. And isn't it great being a part of it?
I'll tell you what, we have enjoyed doing everything from putting tables together and varnishing them to moving egg chickens and bringing the fresh little chicks in one day old.
Did you
It's
notice
been
there's
incredible.
always work on the farm? And you're,
Oh,
of course, welcome to come back and join in that, and as is everyone else, anytime you want.
Anytime, and I'll tell you
Anytime.
what, we will be back in the fall and just see what it's like in the fall, because this is the spring. In the fall, it's got to be beautiful as well.
Every season has its own beauty in that rhythm of life, so come back.
From Bucks County, Pennsylvania, I'm Dan Hunt with my incredible wife, Patti Hunt, on this incredible Spring Creek farm, saying have a great rest of today.
And an even better day tomorrow.